It's a chonky boy. There is heavy world building, but honestly, it is epic fantasy to the max. Anyway, you just kind of have to read it and get into it. It is an investment of time for sure. The thing that was a struggle for me, hold on. It is a commitment. Hello friend, welcome back to a Very Bookish Vlogmas where I am diving into my 2023 reading challenge. The goal is 50 books. I've hit that, I've surpassed that, and I am diving into all things tropey and piles and goals for 2024 and everything in between. Today I'm going to be diving into a series that was suggested to me by my best friend Marty. It is a high epic fantasy, and I can't remember how many books are in the series. I want to say there's 14. I am nowhere near completing it, but I wanted to give kind of my initial reaction to this series and all that jazz. Before we dive in, again, if you don't know my book rating system, hop on over to the first video in this series. I have timestamps, so just fast forward to that point, check out my book rating system if you care, and then come back here. All right, so the next series I'm diving in is called Malazan Book of the Fallen. Now, by Steven Erikson. According to Steven Erikson, it's Malazan. I said Malazan when I was reading it, and then I ended up switching over to audiobook because I was struggling with reading, and they also said Malazan. So I have no idea what the proper pronunciation. My guess is, since the author said it's Malazan, then it's supposed to be Malazan, but I'm probably going to mess it up multiple times, and since Marty will most likely be watching this, I'm sure he will say something about it in the comments. Anyway, I'm going to read the synopsis of the first book because that's going to kind of give me a launching point for the first 3 books that I read. It's a lot. It's a lot. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Don't freak out. But I'm just going to give you the first synopsis. Vast legions of gods, mages, humans, dragons, and all manner of creatures play out the fate of the Malazan Empire in this first book in a major epic fantasy series from Steven Erikson. So first of all, I read that description and was like, yes, please, I'm on board. The Malazan Empire simmers with discontent, bled dry by interminable warfare, bitter infighting, and blood confrontations with the formidable Animander Rake and his Tista Andi, ancient and impeccable sorcerers. Even the imperial legions, long injured to the bloodshed, yearn for some respite. Yet Empress Licine's rule remains absolute, enforced by her dread claw assassins. Okay, tell me more. For Sergeant Whiskey Jack and his squad of bridge burners, who I love all of them, and for Tattersail, surviving cadre mage of 2nd Legion, the aftermath of the Siege of Pale should have been a time to mourn the many dead, but Darujhistan, last of the free cities of Genebaxis, yet holds out. It is to this ancient citadel that Licine turns her predatory gaze. However, it would appear that the Empire is not alone in this great game. Sinister, shadow-bound forces are gathering as the gods themselves prepare to play their hand. Conceived and written on a panoramic scale, Gardens of the Moon is epic fantasy of the highest order and enthralling adventure by an outstanding new voice. Now, he first published this back in 1999, so obviously he's not a new author anymore. I got through the first 3 books. I was struggling with the first book because there were so many details. It's high epic fantasy, so a lot of heavy world building, a lot of details, a lot of characters, all of which I love. I was struggling to keep it all in order. So I switched over to the audiobooks, and that really helped me to keep the story going. Yes, did I still miss things here and there? Absolutely. But overall, it helped me carry further through the story. I think what would work well for me is to get through the series in audiobook fashion first, and then come back around and reread the physical books and take notes, annotate, all that good stuff. I really don't know how else to describe these books better than what I just read to you. And honestly, there's so many details that I really couldn't tell you exactly what is going on between book 1, book 2, and book 3. But I can tell you what I really, really enjoyed. I enjoy that there's kind of this pantheon of gods going on that are interacting with this world, and it's all mixed in. And I can tell, I'm moving into book 4, and I can already tell that there are such tiny threads of plot that I didn't notice that will be tied up in like book 8. There's a ton of stuff happening, and it's all going to work in together. While it is a lot, it's a ton of fun to see how all of those threads weave together. I love a good high fantasy. Is it a commitment? Absolutely. Is it worth the commitment? Absolutely. I really enjoyed that it was such a beefy book. All of them are thick books. Even the audiobooks are like 34 hours, 42 hours. They just keep getting bigger and bigger and longer. So there is a lot to explore, a lot of characters that you're gonna see for a long period of time. So you get to see their character development, you get to kind of get their backstory at different times. Because it's such a long series, you get little nuggets. Instead of a lot of info dumping, you get little nuggets here and there. And so you learn about your characters as they're interacting with each other, because there are so many of them. And that's a fun way to do world building. That's a fun way to do character development. It's a lot more interesting than info dumping. And don't get me wrong, I love J.R.R. Tolkien. I love Lord of the Rings, but there were some info dumping sessions in there that were rough, and I did not get that sense at all in this series, and I really appreciated that. There is quite a bit of humor in this as well. You have some characters that are spicy, and I absolutely adore it. These books deal a lot with war, and Steven Erikson does not pull any punches when dealing with how awful war is. I appreciate when books don't pull punches in that way, where it's very realistic. But it wasn't gory. It really wasn't gory at all. Even the sections that are talking about, relationships between people, or more spicy scenes, if you will, they were not explicit. So he explains war very well, in which you can very much visualize it without being like traumatized by, hacking away and blood spurting everywhere. You're like, oh, that was a really bad scene, but it's not too much. And I really enjoyed how he explored those really dark themes in a way that wasn't explicit. There are so many characters, but every character is a blast. Honestly, I don't think there is one character that I didn't feel very strongly for. Even very minor characters, I felt very strongly either I really didn't like them, or I thought, wow, they're really complex, or I really, really loved them, or I wanted to know more. There were no characters in his book that fell flat for me. And that's pretty wild when you think about how big this book series is, and when you think about just how many characters are involved in this story that's going to continue on for, like I said, I think 14 books or something like that. You know what? Let me check. Sorry, I lied. 10 books. It looks like there are 10 books in the series. So I know that doesn't give you a ton of information on the synopsis of the book, but honestly, in the same way that my friend explained it to me, you just kind of have to read it and get into it to really understand what the book is about. Yes, that synopsis gives you an idea. You have where we're going on the larger scale, but you kind of just have to get into it, to decide if you're going to like it. The thing that was a struggle for me in this series is it is such a massive series. There are a lot of details. There are a lot of characters. there is heavy, heavy world building. It is epic fantasy to the max. Because of that, I definitely had to take breaks. So I got through 1, 2, and 3, and I will be getting into book 4. My goal is to finish the series next year. Honestly, it might take me longer though. I'm not quite sure. That was the only thing that was kind of a bummer, was it's a chonky boy. It is a commitment. It is an investment of time for sure. I still think it's worth it, but it is a commitment and you are gonna be there for a while. So just know, if you're looking for something to commit to, like a lot of time to, this is definitely the series for you. If you love epic high fantasy, definitely for you. If you love world building, absolutely. Just know that you're getting into like a series. One thing that I did discover at the middle of book 3 was a absolutely wonderful Reddit group that talks all about this book series, and they talk about it from no spoilers to first-time readers, to 10th-time readers, to full spoilers. They have a whole document on there that are no spoilers that give you kind of an outline of each book. That way, as you're reading, you can kind of keep some of your details together, and that was super helpful. So before I dive into book 4, I'm actually going to dive a little deeper into that subreddit group and refresh my memory, take some notes before continuing forward. So I would love to know, have you heard of this series before? Have you heard of the Malazan/Malazan series? Is this something you would read? Have you read it? I would love to know your thoughts. I would love to know what you think about it. And let me know in the comments if this is something you would put on your TBR pile or if this is something you have finished. Anyways, I will see you next time. Thanks for coming along. Bye.